All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. We have Mr. Mahi de Silva joining us. He is one of the leading voices in the application of mobile technology and a Silicon Valley veteran with a strong track record for building businesses that have had $1 billion plus exits, $1 billion plus exits, that is. He currently serves as chairman and CEO of AmplifyAI. He recently served as chairman and board of directors of Noventis Incorporated, acquired in 2019 by WEX. Mr. De Silva also served on the leadership team at VeriSign for 10 years, from startup to successful IPO, and leading the acquisition and integration of 21 companies during his tenure. Mr. De Silva started his career in Silicon Valley with 7 formative years at Apple. He is the author of 7 U.S. patents in image processing, object-oriented programming, security, electronic payments, advertising, messaging, and artificial intelligence. That is quite the background here. Thanks for joining us today, Mahi.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, reading the bio, you do have some background in AI, but would love to learn more about what got you interested in AI and what were your beginnings.
Yeah, great question. So, the last company we built was a company called AdMarvel that we ended up turning into a company called Opera MediaWorks. We had billions of consumers that had our ad SDK on their phone, and we were drowning in data. So some of our very smart engineers started implementing machine learning technology to basically distill all these signals that we were getting from users all over the world and make them actionable. So not only of creating very detailed profiles about those consumers, but being able to use these signals in real time. And that's the real power of AI and machine learning. And then, the inspiration for Amplify.ai was recognizing that a lot of B2C communication, so businesses reaching out to consumers or consumers reaching into businesses, require a human being.
Right.
And today, with AI and natural language processing, natural language understanding, you can automate a lot of that. And that's really what our value proposition is about.
Awesome. So as you think about AmplifyAI and specifically your customers, what is the main challenge that your customers face today?
Yeah, I'd say, our focus is really helping companies, growth marketers, engage their target customer more effectively. So think about this. Think about there's $70 billion being spent on Facebook advertising this year, right? So what that usually means is you see an ad on the feed, might be in Instagram, might be in Facebook, you click on it, the browser opens up and you go out and you land on a website and you hope, the marketer hopes you kind of see what they're trying to sell and they convert you. But, we all get interrupted in life. Even if we're genuinely interested in a product or service, we may click on that link, but then, something else happens. If your phone rings, you get an email.
You got 90 tabs open.
Yeah, and you're done, right? Like that brand cannot re-engage with that customer. So what we do is we turn those ads into what we call click-to-messaging ads.
Okay.
So what happens is instead of you landing inside of a website, you land into your favorite messaging app. It might be Facebook Messenger, it might be WhatsApp, it might be SMS. But once you've done that, if you get interrupted in that discovery process with the brand value proposition, the brand can send you a message. Right?
Okay.
And that re-engagement, and this is all automated through machines, drives at least 3x better conversion rates for an ad. If you A/B test a Facebook ad, an Instagram ad with click-to-web or click-to-messaging is at least 3 times better.
So, how does that message come up to re-engage me? So let's say, for example, someone has a new course. They launch a new course. They put an ad on Facebook. I click the Facebook. Oh, this is going to help me to grow my podcast, right? I click the ad. I go to their landing page, but then I get distracted, right? Oh, I just saw a advertisement for Nike. I was thinking about these shoes that I want to buy, and I go to the Nike page. What's the next step after that?
Right. So, and you know, our algorithms will let a reasonable amount of time pass because you might have gotten distracted, but you came back. But maybe an hour later, if there's an hour lapse in that engagement, what you get, like in this case, is a Facebook Messenger or a WhatsApp message in your inbox that says, hey, thanks for engaging with our latest course. You didn't complete the form. Would you like to restart it? And right there is a message that can let you navigate into the next step of sort of product or service discovery.
Right. Yes. And that seems very important, just given the amount of distraction that there is on the internet today. Now, how does that work in mobile, or is it purely desktop? You know, or if so, what's the difference, if any?
Yeah. So even though like our professional careers have really been around mobile, this solution works across desktop and mobile.
Okay.
And the beauty of using like a messaging solution like Facebook Messenger is that, you know, it doesn't matter if you're on your laptop, it'll pop up in Messenger on your laptop. If you're on your phone, it'll pop up on your phone. So it really doesn't matter like that. The problem with SMS, for example, and we love SMS, but SMS only works on your phone.
Right.
And, you know, even though like things like iMessage are making that better, it's not perfect. Mm-hmm. So we try to kind of direct our customers towards that ubiquitous messaging solutions like a Messenger or WhatsApp.
Yeah, and that's actually very interesting. You know, spending my whole life in the States, I relocated to Colombia. And as you probably know, in the States, right, we're pretty much using SMS to send text messages back and forth, you know, especially if you're talking about folks who one person's an Android user, the other one's Apple. But it doesn't matter, you know, here my experience has been, it doesn't matter what phone you have, people communicate through WhatsApp. So it sounds like the solution you're offering, you're thinking more globally versus kind of purely, you know, a US focused solution.
Yes, yes. And, you know, brands shouldn't mandate to the consumer what messaging service they prefer. Mm-hmm. Find them on those surfaces, right? And that's why smart brands, you know, they spend money on Facebook, they spend money on search, they spend money on display advertising. The same way, let the consumer decide, right? Because if they find you on the web, maybe SMS is the better way. But you give them a couple of icons. You show them a text icon, you show them a WhatsApp icon, you show them a Messenger icon, and they'll click on what is most meaningful for them.
Awesome. So when that message pops up for me on Facebook Messenger, you're sending essentially a link for them to re-engage with the brand. Are you handling any more of the conversation? And is there any extra steps that AmplifyAI is taking after that?
Yeah, it's not just a link. It's you're in the customer journey in the message, because these services like Messenger and WhatsApp are rich media. They're not limited to 160 characters. You can embed a video in there.
Right.
You can embed a form that connects to your Shopify instance or your WooCommerce instance or your Salesforce instance. So everything from start to finish can happen within that WhatsApp experience or Messenger experience.
Very interesting. So then the technology would allow the potential customer, the consumer, to actually engage and have this conversation with the company that they could potentially buy this product from.
Absolutely. And then the beauty of it is that by engaging that user, you've really earned the right to have these periodic conversations with them, right? And we have to counsel our customers, don't push on the gas too hard because then it's going to feel spammy. But if you really modulate this new medium, you've earned the right to re-engage that user when there's, you know, an opportunity to upsell or cross-sell or give them the ability to know about a promotion, a sale. So great opportunities to re-engage them without using traditional marketing or retargeting.
Awesome, awesome. And have you all been able to discuss kind of metrics around the return on investment, the ROI that your customer is seeing versus the other option, retargeting?
Right. Yeah. So the beauty of this is that, you know, I told you if you A/B test the click to web versus click to messenger, at least 3x better conversion rates. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we just launched a customer in Southeast Asia, a telecom operator that's using this to acquire customers. They saw a 5x reduction in CPA, cost per acquisition.
Okay.
And it's because you take out all the noise, right? All that noise of all that ad spend you put out there. You get clicks, but you don't get conversions.
Right.
But because of this loop back mechanism, the ability to nudge and drip those users, your effective CPA goes down significantly.
Okay. Okay. Very helpful. Very helpful. So curious about, you know, you all are obviously on the cutting edge of technology with artificial intelligence. In your previous company, you had some machine learning engineers beginning to build out the technology. Now, when you go to the early days of AmplifyAI, how did you think about building out this capability? I mean, were you doing the programming yourself, or, you know, what was that dynamic?
Yeah, you know, when we started the journey, we started looking at toolkits that were out there, you know, Dialogflow from Google, you know, Wit.ai from Facebook, Lex from Amazon, Cortana from Microsoft. And so those are all good places to get started. You got to build your own kind of competitive differentiators, right? So my counsel would be test those platforms, you know, figure out how you can learn and leverage them, but then also figure out what's going to, you know, differentiate you from your pack. And that often means, you know, starting to invest in your own stack, your AI stack.
Now, what does, you know, just to dig in a little bit deeper here, that differentiation between using tools that are offered by the Amazons, the Googles of the world versus your own stack? How does that change your product? What competitive advantage does that give you?
So what we found is that, you know, the conversations we encounter, particularly in social media, has a lot of emojis, has a lot of, and what we found is that, you know, these platforms, these tools that we could get from these, you know, the kind of the giants really didn't understand those nuances. And that's why we had to then go implement some of those things ourselves. And that's what sets us apart from, you know, kind of those ready-made solutions. But, you know, any company that's attacking a space, you know, let's say it's insurance and, you know, you're building artificial intelligence around optimizing the insurance buying process or the comparison shopping process. What's going to make you different is making that user experience better and really figuring out with your target customers, can you improve upon those sort of platforms that are out there to really make something compelling.
Right. And it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, with, you know, your experience seeing that a lot of the end users or the folks that the brands are trying to engage with, they're using emojis, they communicate in a different way. So for you to have that data that is unique to those interactions has helped you to be able to create a more customized solution versus purely using the open source tools and the data.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing about machine learning is that your data set matters, right? So we have seen billions of these conversations around e-commerce. We have seen billions of these conversations around consumer packaged goods, even political campaigns. So our next customer in that vertical gets all the benefit of those hundreds of customers that we've serviced in that vertical. And that's really a very unique sort of facet of machine learning. And that's why, you know, we should all get started in this stuff now. Because, you know, just in 6 months, in 6 years, just the data that you have to deliver really a refined experience is unmatched.
And just so we can level set here, as we think about that data, I think pre-call we had a short discussion around the number of interactions that you all have seen to date. And I think my last numbers were at about half, but can you give us some insight into the number of interactions, the number of conversations that you all are seeing on the platform or have seen?
Yeah, so, you know, we've been in market for about 2.5 years. And we just ran the numbers just, you know, as we're coming to the end of July. We've enabled more than 8 billion engagements with more than 400 million users around the world. And that's because we have a very, very international sort of footprint. Mm-hmm. We're multilingual. And, you know, we don't pretend to understand what region is going to embrace this technology first. We want to get it out there and really respond to brands that might be in Colombia or in Norway or India or Brazil, even though, you know, our team is based here in Silicon Valley.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that is certainly a lot of data, proprietary data that you're able to pull from. In the early days, did you have to look at alternative data sources just to get you started? How did that look?
Yeah, like I said, we did experiment with a lot of these other platforms, mm-hmm. And you know, we saw the limitations, which is what really helped us hone our product and refine it to where, you know, today we have arguably the best data set around these type of B2C interactions.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to go back to when you first finished the product, or maybe even when you finished the MVP, right? And think about, you know, what was your next step in terms of customer acquisition. What was it like getting that first customer? Did this come through relationships? Did you do ads? How did that play out?
Yeah, a great question. And I think this is a common issue for most entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So, you know, what we did was we kind of tapped into our Rolodex in our last business, which is really about mobile advertising, to some of those customers, those brands, those agencies, and said, hey, we've built a brand new thing. Would you be willing to experiment with us? You know, and we would give them like a free proof of concept trial, you know, kick the tires for 30 days. Yeah. Give us your feedback. And if you like it, then, you know, we'll turn it into a commercial contract. So that's really how it started. We didn't spend any money on advertising. It was a lot of, you know, kind of founder selling. Mm-hmm. But once we got that feedback, right, which happens very quickly within the first 3 months, we really understood what our 1.0 product should look like. Okay. Who our target customer should be. And then we started doing a little bit more, you know, targeted demand generation on places like LinkedIn, doing some ebooks, some webinars, you know, doing some thought leadership pieces in the various, you know, magazines and things like that. And today we have a lot of inbound interest as a result of that, right? Because of the case studies that we've created along these verticals.
That's awesome. And you mentioned that the customer base today is generally growth marketers.
Yeah, I think our sweet spot is people that are doing digital marketing that's really focused on growing their business. So how do they acquire new customers, and how do they re-engage customers that may not be active consumers of their product or service?
Now, does this span across because in my mind, a growth marketer could be a solopreneur who has, I mentioned a course before, who has a course, but you can also have the person at Nike, right, who sits in a large enterprise and is trying to figure out new ways to accelerate sales. Is it important to you the size of the company? Do you have a focus right now?
Well, and this is kind of a unique thing with AI and ML technology, is that you kind of have to be at scale. Because if you're a sole proprietor, for example, and you're just getting started, we can help, but it's really not going to change your world, right? Because a lot of it is kind of figuring out your path. But if you're spending at scale, we have customers that are spending, $100 million a year on Facebook, or $100 million on Google search. And those companies, like, the ROI that they're seeing is just crazy. Right. Those numbers, like, 3 to 7x return on investment. So scale does matter with this. And I'd say for us, because, as a startup, we've got to kind of figure out where we can maximize our return on our investment in terms of, like, humans and bandwidth. But over time, this certainly will work for anyone. It's being able to, we start at the top end of the market and scale down, as opposed to starting at the bottom and scaling up.
Right. And, in my experience, as, my background in investing, for the most part, I would say startups who are selling into the enterprise, the sales cycle tended to be a little bit, a lot longer than if you were selling to a sole proprietor or SMB, right? Do you see those same dynamics? Are you looking at, or are the people in these larger organizations more early adopters looking at your technology?
Yeah. So the challenge, why we decided to go after large enterprises is because they have big checkbooks.
Yeah, fair.
Right. And yes, the sales cycles are longer, but they are working with significant scale, and we found that it's pretty easy for us to move their needles.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is 5x, return on 100 million in ad spend is a lot better than 5x on 5,000 of ad spend.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And I'm curious what the conversation is like. Specifically, does the customer care that it's artificial intelligence? Do they know what our artificial intelligence is? Is there any kind of educational process that you have to go through?
Yeah, another great question. We really counsel our customers to create a persona, and it really should be a digital assistant for the company. Because if you go out there and you pretend to be a human and don't get it right, you get a very annoyed customer. But if you tell them, I'm brand X's digital assistant, I'm here to help you, they're actually pretty forgiving, right? Because this technology is evolving very quickly. It's getting better every day, but it's not perfect.
Right.
There will be instances where you have to do a live handoff to a human care person or a human sales assistant. But our job is just automating it as much as possible, of contextualizing, learning that, you have 10 people a day that's calling about this problem with the zipper of this new, pair of shorts that you're shipping, or You know, in the Northeast, you're getting a bunch of shipping delays with UPS shipments, right? All of that stuff is actionable because it's not the people in the care organization or the sales organization reacting. It's the dashboard that's telling you this stuff is happening. Like, you need to be prepared for this.
Right.
So we're not replacing humans wholesale. We're making them smarter, and we're automating the front end of that so it can really be a 24/7 operation.
Right. And it sounds like what you're saying is maybe that first message that comes up from the customer when they re-engage is letting you know that this is a digital assistant. This is not, hi, I'm Darius here to serve you, you know?
Yes, because that authenticity, right? It's very hard. And you even see this with human chat, right? So a lot of websites that have human chat, what happens is that these human agents have like 7 screens open and they're trying to have 7 different conversations. They don't do a very good job of servicing, you know, that one consumer, and that's annoying enough. If you pretend to be a human and you miss, you know, a nuance in that conversation, it can actually hurt the brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually had a question around that. You know, I can imagine a scenario where if someone knows, whether it's a human or they know it's a digital assistant, people are curious about how intelligent, right? Especially if they know it's a digital assistant, they're curious about how intelligent the system is. So they may try to say things that are out of the normal to see what the system's response is going to be. But then on the flip side, if they're talking to a human, they just assume that anything they say will be interpretable. So I could see a lot of cases where you kind of have this bell curve where you get a lot of similar questions that a digital assistant will be able to answer, but then you have these questions that are kind of out of left field. How does the system respond to the questions that are out of left field?
Yeah, so, you know, our system really focuses on training for intent, right? It's not training for keywords, phrases, a single emoji. It's really understanding the intent. So if somebody, you know, is chatting with the digital assistant about a watch and they ask you what's the temperature outside, right? It's really not like a reasonable expectation. And our machines would typically do is to say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Can you rephrase your question?
Got it.
And then we back off, right? Like if we get to a situation where we've done that 3 times, then we offer them, like, would you like to talk to a human agent?
Okay.
So you don't try to belabor the conversation and get into a little bit of a tit for tat with the consumer, because the machine's never going to win.
Right.
And, you know, the machine doesn't have an ego, so it doesn't need to win. So you know, you have to like gracefully back out of conversations if they become troublesome, particularly if it's emotional. And sometimes, you know, customers have a real problem that make them angry, and you know, you can try to normalize that. You can try to calm them down, but if they really want to talk to a human, let's get them connected to that.
Okay. Awesome. Another question. It sounds, I think you mentioned before that your team is primarily based in the Bay Area today.
Yes.
Any thoughts? I know Google recently announced that their teams can work remotely. Obviously, everyone today is working remotely, but any thoughts on kind of team structure, team dynamics in terms of location, and especially as you guys have a global customer base, where your people are located throughout the world?
Yeah, so we actually have a team in India that helps us. You know, we have that team focused on Southeast Asia sales and marketing, but also it gives us a 24-hour clock. So literally, when our developers' day ends, our developers in India day starts. So by doing that, we have sort of, perfect efficiency in the company. We have perfect efficiency in terms of monitoring our systems and managing our infrastructure. So those are the type of things, and we have cost structure that's very attractive there. So those are the type of things to stretch your, kind of the resources that you have as a startup.
Right.
And being international gives you not just kind of flexibility, it gives you amazing capacity to learn from those kind of different cultures and markets as well.
Awesome. Okay, and last question here. If you could go back to day one, and you had to start over from day one, what would you do differently? Better yet, what would your first 90 days look like, knowing everything you know now?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. We kind of bet on pure social media engagement because that's where the trend was going. We missed out of the fact that, websites still get a ton of traffic. So what we started was, really starting the journey from a feed-based interaction. And we found that almost 50% of our conversations actually happen on the web. And it was kind of our customers that pointed us in that direction. So that was a fairly significant sort of learning. The other would be to say that emerging markets, right? Asia, Latin America, even parts of Middle East and Africa are embracing these technologies so much faster because they're mobile first. They understand messaging. They understand that everything is about messaging. That the web is kind of really, they kind of leapfrog the web. So the ability to get really large companies to lean into new technologies is actually happening faster outside of the US than inside.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so just a recalibration of where you put your salespeople and marketing people.
Okay, so if I could backtrack here, it's the first thing is test your assumptions regarding your market, and potentially have a global perspective on sales and marketing.
For sure.
All right. Awesome. Well, this is certainly interesting and very educational for myself. So I know everyone else was able to pull out at least a few nuggets here. Thanks a lot for joining us today, Mahi. I know that's it for time, but we really appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Darius. It's good talking to you.
No problem. We'll see you soon.
Okay, take care.